Hello, good evening. Welcome to Wednesday's North West Tonight with Roger Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Our top story. Callsgrove for a police officer accused of gross misconduct over the Hillsborough disaster to be stripped of his knighthood. Sir Norman Bettison's alleged to have been misleading when he applied to be the Chief Constable of Merseyside. Also tonight, Storm Desmond, 10 years on, reflections on the freak weather which battered the north in 2015.
I remember one of our volunteers coming back and sitting in a corner and saying, "What do you say to somebody whose life is in a skip?" And 10 years later, I still don't know the answer to that question.
Fans' anger as Salford Red Devils Rugby League Club is forced into liquidation over unpaid tax bills.
Obviously, it's devastating for the club, who been going 152 years. But it was a day what needed to come, to be fair.
We'll take a look at the country's biggest advent calendar. 24 shipping containers full of Christmas charity.
And an unsettled day tomorrow with cloud, wind and rain returning. I'll be back at the end of the programme with all the details on that and a little look into the weekend too.
There are growing calls tonight for the former Chief Constable of Merseyside, Sir Norman Bettison, to be stripped of his knighthood. Yesterday's report from the Independent Office for Police Conduct named him as one of 12 officers who would face gross misconduct charges if he'd still been a serving officer. Sir Norman Bettison was a Chief Inspector with South Yorkshire Police in 1989 and was involved in the force's highly criticised response to the disaster. Here's our Merseyside reporter, Andy Gill.
Norman Bettison was Chief Constable of Merseyside between 1998 and 2004. After a long police career, he was knighted in 2006, an honour the Hillsborough families now think he should lose.
He should be stripped of it, because to be given a knighthood is an honour from your country. It's an honourable thing. And for me personally, Norman Bettison's a dishonourable person.
From the very start of his tenure on Merseyside, the families of those who died in the Hillsborough disaster passionately opposed Sir Norman's appointment. That was because he'd been a Chief Inspector at South Yorkshire Police at the time of the tragedy, and they believed he'd played a part in deflecting blame from the police onto Liverpool fans. Now, the Independent Office of Police Conduct has said he would have faced 2 gross misconduct allegations of dishonesty if he'd not retired. One over his role in the disaster while applying for the Merseyside job, and secondly, over allegations of providing misleading press statements. In 2018, criminal charges of misconduct in public office against him were dropped because of lack of evidence. Then, Sir Norman said his assertion that he'd done nothing wrong had been vindicated.
My involvement in the events around Hillsborough has often been misrepresented, even in Parliament. Since then, I've been forced to deny strenuously that I have done anything wrong in the aftermath of the disaster.
A body called the Honours Forfeiture Committee can decide to remove someone's honours. The Cabinet Office website says it will automatically consider cases where an individual has been censured or struck off by the relevant regulatory authority or professional body for actions or failures to act, especially which are directly relevant to the granting of the honour. It's not clear, though, whether the police watchdog saying he would have faced misconduct allegations reaches this threshold. Merseyside MPs and others want his honours removed.
Not only do I believe that the knighthood should be forfeited, rescinded, but also that we need to look at whether people like him and then others who are still alive out that 12 should have their pensions also stopped.
There's hardly any elements of justice left for the families and survivors of Hillsborough, but him having that knighthood sticks in the craw, and I feel as though now's the time to ask to get it removed.
The BBC approached Sir Norman Bettison yesterday, but he declined to comment. Andy Gill, BBC North West Tonight, Liverpool.
Now, 150 years of rugby league history ended in less than a minute in a London court this morning. The Salford Red Devils have limped from one financial crisis to another for the past year, and today the club ran out of road. It was wound up over unpaid tax bills. However, tonight there are suggestions there could be a quick resurrection. Let's get the very latest, find out what's going on. Phil McCann's at the Salford Community Stadium for us tonight. But a sad day then, Phil, but it's been coming for a while.
Yeah, and Roger, if you're expecting to find fans across this city in mourning tonight, well, you won't, because many of them, it seems, are quite glad to see the back of the current owners. Indeed, over the last few months, there have been protests against them. Now, it's the company that owns the club here that was wound up in that 1-minute hearing at the High Court in London today. They have outstanding debts. Significantly, they owe £500,000 in tax. They don't, incidentally, own the stadium here. This comes after, as you mentioned, Roger, a horrendous year, terrible results on the pitch, a mass player exodus, wages that were paid late, and all capped off with the loss of their status in the Super League. They're due to start next season in January, the tier down in the Championship. We're earlier on, there's 6 weeks to go until that starts, by the way. Earlier on, we're at the Dog and Partridge in Eccles, well known as a haunt of Salford fans, and many people there appeared to be breathing a sigh of relief.
Today's news, obviously, it's devastating for the club, who been going 152 years. But it was a day what needed to come, to be fair. But as the months were going on, it was getting more upsetting, more frustrating as a fan.
I don't know if you can class it as a good thing or a bad thing, but now the owners have gone, and hopefully now we can just obviously move on as fans.
It's got to the point where you wanted it to come, because the people that were in control weren't really in control. They had tacit ownership of the club.
However, Phil, there is maybe, perhaps, hope of a new dawn.
Yeah, the question is, can new owners come into a sport where it's notoriously difficult to make a profit? It did happen with Bradford Bulls some years ago. The mayors of Salford and Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham and Paul Dennett, said earlier on that they've had constructive conversations about the club's future ownership. And former CEO here of the Red Devils, Chris Irwin, has said that he has brought together a consortium which he said has been working in the background to create a realistic and sustainable business plan to take the fabric of our beloved club and start again. He said that things have even got as far as discussions with the potential head coach, staff and players. He says they want a quick resolution, but all of that is up to the Rugby Football League. The RFL's board will be meeting tomorrow.
Phil, thank you. We will watch this space. Now, several children have been hurt after the roof of a double-decker school bus was ripped off when it hit a low bridge near Wigan. It happened on Spenmore Lane in Coppell at around 12:30 this afternoon. An 8-year-old boy was treated in hospital for a head injury. It's thought the bus had been carrying pupils from Woodfold Primary School. An investigation's underway after a man's body was found following a house fire near Oldham this morning. Emergency services were called to the blaze in Royton just after 5:30. Inquiries into how it started and what caused the man's death are continuing. NHS England has threatened to replace the directors of the trust which runs the Royal Preston and Chorley hospitals if its financial situation doesn't improve. In February, we revealed that the trust, along with Blackpool and East Lancashire hospitals and the whole of NHS Lancashire and South Cumbria, has been placed into financial special measures. Lancashire Teaching Hospitals Trust says it is committed to improving its performance. Transport for Greater Manchester says it's working with the police and the City Council to manage unprecedented levels of traffic. Saturday was the busiest of the year so far, and also since the monitoring of daily traffic volumes began. 1.4 million trips were made to or from the city centre, apparently. A missing piece of railway history was returned to Manchester Piccadilly Station today, nearly 30 years after it went missing. It's a 3-ton plaque to the Manchester and Birmingham Railway. It was put there in the 1960s. Taken down in 1998 and never replaced, but then a retired train driver spotted it for sale online 6 years ago. It was reacquired and restored. Now, it seems incredible that it was 10 years ago. I remember standing on the banks of the River Kent in Kendal talking about this. The first week of December in 2015 brought the north of England's worst storm for 600 years. One man died, I seem to recall, as Storm Desmond brought over a foot of rain to Cumbria in just 24 hours. Thousands of homes and businesses were flooded. And 10 years on, the Environment Agency spent more than £600 million protecting more than 41,000 properties. We're going to be looking at this over the next few nights. Here's our environment correspondent, Judy Hobson.
December the 5th, 2015. A month's rain fell in 24 hours and the people of Cumbria bore the brunt. In Kendal, almost 3,000 properties were flooded.
This is absolutely bonkers.
Johnny Gios was a volunteer at the Sandylands Methodist Church and helped those forced to leave their homes in a hurry.
The floodwater on Sandylands Road is, well, 3 foot at least. Never ever seen anything like this.
We rescued people on the night, brought them here to the church as a reception centre, and then we had to be rescued because the waters had risen that much. 900 homes around this area were flooded.
Sarah and Dave's home was one of them.
The Christmas tree was up and we had battery lights and the water was up to my waist and the Christmas tree was floating around with the lights still on.
You walk into your house and the mess, yeah, everything upside down.
Just some people, that's the Cumbria spirit.
Charities and the emergency services had to quickly respond to a major incident. For his work, David Taylor received an MBE.
I'd been involved in earlier floods in Carlisle and Cockermouth, but this was on a different scale altogether. Because many people didn't have insurance. The sights that we saw were really upsetting. And I remember one of our volunteers coming back and sitting in a corner and saying, "What do you say to somebody whose life is in a skip?" And 10 years later, I still don't know the answer to that question.
Storm Desmond was an extreme weather event, which scientists believe caused the worst flood in the country for 6 centuries. The question was, how could these homes be protected in the future? 6 kilometres of flood defences are now being built across the town. They're due to be completed in the autumn of 2027.
The flood defences in Kendal won't be finished for another 2 years. That's 12 years after Storm Desmond. Why is it taking so long?
Kendal is a very complex place in which to deliver works. You look at, for example, Carlisle, where on the back of Storm Desmond, we followed a similar appraisal, planning, design process, and we were able to complete those defences in 2021. Kendal, there's a lot more to it by way of ground conditions, complexities with utility diversions, planning applications, common land consent. There's a number of variables there.
If Storm Desmond was to happen again, would these houses be protected?
If there was another Storm Desmond, they would not accommodate that scale of event, but they will provide a good standard of protection.
That is still a huge worry for residents, but a planned scheme to hold water back further upstream should prevent flooding even in events like Storm Desmond. But that is some time off completion.
It's always been our plan to incorporate upstream storage with these flood walls, and what that does is maximise our standard of protection here without having walls higher through Kendal. So they work together to lower that flow and minimise the risk to the community here in Kendal.
9 months after Storm Desmond, Sarah and Dave finally moved back home, but they couldn't stay. Every time it rained, they were anxious.
When it rained, again, he was looking outside to think, will it, won't it?
I felt hopeless when it was raining and it was lashing down, and I'd had that worry of it happening again, and I just couldn't go through that trauma again.
We've moved on now, we live in a house, yeah, that's a lot higher.
Storm Desmond was an exceptional weather event, and 10 years on, many here still fear the sound of heavy rain. Judy Hobson, BBC North West Tonight, Kendal.
We'll look at this more, as I said. Tomorrow we'll have a look at how farmers in Glenridding on the shores of Ullswater, one of the areas worst hit by these Storm Desmond floods, are working together to create natural flood defences. Right, here are some of the other stories people are reading this evening from BBC News. And part of Ramsey Cottage Hospital on the Isle of Man has been closed due to a pest control issue. Some services have moved to Nobles Hospital while an infestation in the roof is sorted out. A 10-year-old boy was airlifted to Alderhay Children's Hospital after being hit by a suspected drink driver. The collision happened in Alsager in Cheshire last night. And a mural of the Blackpool football legend Sir Stanley Matthews has been unveiled at Bloomfield Road. It is the first major work by the club's new artist in residence. You can find out more bbc.co.uk/local news or have a look on the BBC News app. A mum from Cumbria has been to Westminster to seek further support from MPs for extra screenings for hidden cardiac conditions in young people. Leslie Mees from Dalton-in-Furness lost her young son Wilson at just 25. Along with her friend Donna Parker, whose daughter Vicky was 30 when she died, the pair have been organising screenings around South Cumbria in collaboration with the charity Cardiac Risk in the Young. Phil Chapman has this report.
He was so fit and healthy, and he's just absolutely buzzing.
Two mothers who met after each losing a child at a tragically young age before joining forces to raise funds and awareness about hidden heart conditions. Leslie and Donna have already organised screenings in Cumbria, along with the charity Cardiac Risk in the Young, in memory of Leslie's son Wilson, who died at 25, and Donna's daughter Vicky, who was just 30. Now Leslie has taken their campaign to Westminster, accompanied by Wilson's girlfriend, Isabella.
Well, Izzy was Wilson's girlfriend when Wilson passed away, so we've stayed close. It's very, very hard for us to be together because obviously our common factor is Wilson.
I just think he'd be really proud that we're doing this and proud of us, and obviously it's really difficult. We don't want to, this is not something we want to be doing, but we don't want any more of, Wilson's to pass away like this, really. It's just terrible.
Isabella has a family connection with her MP, who's trying to further their cause in Westminster.
Wilson went out with my niece at the point at which she passed away. My niece's family live in my constituency, so I wanted to do all I could to help. So we pulled together an all-parliamentary grouping to look at the research, to actually identify what we can do to improve the amount of screening availability.
Also supporting Leslie and Isabella in Westminster was Professor Sanjay Sharma, a consultant cardiologist who's long worked alongside Cardiac Risk in the Young.
Every week we have 12 deaths in young people who have no warning symptoms at all. We have multiple MPs that support our cause, and we are hoping to get more support in the hope that we can roll out this type of screening, not just to sport, but to the general population as a whole.
And as their awareness campaign continues, Leslie and Donna are already planning further screening sessions back home in South Cumbria from next April. Phil Chapman, BBC North West Tonight in Westminster.
Wish them well with their excellent work. Right, football. Erling Haaland has become the fastest player to reach 100 goals.
Of course, proud moment. 100 club is a huge thing, and to do it this quickly is amazing, and I'm proud. I'm happy.
Everton had one other result from last night. Blackburn drew 1-1 with Ipswich. That game replayed at Ewood Park. Those games are being played tonight. That was in the Championship. These games are tonight in the Premier League. Liverpool are at home to Sunderland, and Burnley, who need a win, don't they, take on Crystal Palace at Turf Moor. If you decide to take up running, you might try a couch to 5K, maybe even progress to a park run, but progress can be painfully slow in more ways than one, he says from personal experience. But not for this guy. This is Alex Welch. He lives near Wilmslow in Cheshire. He only really ramped up his running a couple of years ago, and he's now won 2 of the 3 major ultramarathons that he has entered after dodging lions and snakes, most recently in a 250-kilometre race across the desert in Namibia.
Naturally, 250k in the desert is always going to be tough. Compared to the other 2, though, I feel like me as an athlete I was better adapted for this. I did a lot of heat training in advance. You have to be conscious of your surroundings. So a lot of the time there's wildlife on course. I was lucky enough to see desert adapted elephants, to run through flocks of ostrich, mongoose. It really was a beautiful experience.
And I guess because you're at the front, you're seeing all that because you presumably scare that away for everyone that's coming behind. But are you scared? Because if you run across a lion, I mean, what happens? There's no security, I presume.
No, exactly that. So it is having your wits around you. You know, there's the medical staff there, but You know, if you come against a lion, I'm on my own, I might be 40, 50 minutes away from support. They do teach you sort of how to deal with animal encounters, but, you know, it's a case of taking responsibility as a runner. There is risk associated with doing these sorts of races outside of just the temperature, but that's part and parcel of the experience, and it's part and parcel of why I feel such a great sense of fulfilment for having achieved and done these sorts of races.
You say compared with the other two, because when we spoke to you, well, we've spoken to you a couple of times, but back in February, you were running in the Arctic.
I was.
This is like literally the other extreme, isn't it?
Exactly. So there's 4 races in the Beyond the Ultimate series, all in 4 different environments. So, like you said, I spoke to you guys after doing 230k in the Arctic Circle. I then got a last-minute entry to run 200k in the Kyrgyzstani mountains in summer, where I came second. And then I've just done 250k through the Namib Desert. The final one, which I'll be doing in summer next year, is 230k through the Peruvian part of the Amazon jungle. So it's the Amazon next, but between now and then you'll be running in your local park run in Wilmslow, I presume, will you? Correct. I'm looking forward to going down, and when I'm sort of in the lead up to a race or after a race when I'm recovering, I like to volunteer to talk to the other athletes that have signed up for 10k, half marathons, or maybe they've signed up for Manchester Marathon for next year, to talk to them about what their ambitions are. And, you know, one thing I didn't expect was how many other people look at me and think, well, if he can do that, then maybe I can do a smaller race and build up from there. So it really is encouraging a raft of athletes to get involved at any distance. And were you always good at running at school, or is this something you've come to later on? No, not at all. So I picked up running after university as a way of just doing exercise when I was travelling a lot with work. Had a negative experience out in 2021 in the Sahara, dropped running, and then only picked it back up significantly in 2023. So I've only been running for sort of 2.5 years. And in that time, I've managed to become the youngest winner of the Arctic Ultra. I've now set a course record in the Desert Ultra. And yeah, I've got the Jungle Ultra left to look forward to. You've obviously got something about you. Alex, it's lovely to see you, and best of luck, and thank you for coming to speak to us. Thank you for having me. Yeah, he's not even a pro, he's a cybersecurity expert by trade. Now, for youngsters, if they're lucky enough, opening an advent calendar before going to school not just gives them a chocolatey treat, but also, of course, heightens the excitement of Christmas getting closer. It can be a little bit tricky for little fingers to open all the doors, but imagine this, harder still to open the country's biggest advent calendar. That's 35 feet high. It's made of shipping containers. It's in Chorley, and it's been set up by the charity Cash for Kids. It really is something to see, as Lindsay Pross has been finding out.
The spirit of Christmas has come to a business park in Chorley, in the shape of a giant advent calendar. Each container is full of gifts for children who otherwise may not get a present this Christmas. Those supporting vulnerable children will give out the gifts.
There was all sorts, from Peppa Pig toys to some toys for older children, because some people like it's easy to buy a doll or a game, but sometimes they forget about, you know, teenagers needing like hair dryers and things like that. So that was really good that they thought so much about it.
The giant calendar was built by a storage company, which each day is donating a container full of presents to a children's charity.
It's well documented at the minute that people are having to make difficult decisions about, can they afford to heat the home, can they afford food, and it's really difficult for them at the minute. How are they going to be able to afford gifts at Christmas? And every kid should wake up on Christmas Day morning with a gift.
Members of the public are also asked to donate toys. Cash for Kids' Christmas mission takes applications from organisations which support children and young people. It collects the presents and then redistributes them.
There was an application in the box that I read the other day, and it was a very large application for a lot of children, but they highlighted one little boy on there, and last year for his Christmas, he was in his school uniform, he was eating a packed lunch, and he didn't know what Christmas was. So that is the kind of reality that we're facing, and that is what these young people will be experiencing.
The gifts are loaded into ton bags to be collected. Here there are 4 ton bags with gifts for 120 children. But many more donations are needed, because this year there's almost twice the applications as there were last year. And more gifts are needed for teenagers, because they, like all of us, would like to get a gift this Christmas. Cash for Kids would like the public to drop off presents to B&M home stores.
We still have 13,576 children to help, so You know, we just started December. We've got, I think it's 8 working days left for us in terms of volunteers in the warehouse to get 13,000 children presents delivered.
And they're determined that all those who need presents will get them. Lindsay Prosser, BBC North West Tonight, Chorley.
Yeah, what brilliant work and what an advent calendar. Right, let's have a look at the weather. Keely is with us. Have you got an advent calendar in your house?
We've got 2 and neither belong to me. Maybe now they've gone in the sale, I might get one. Hint, hint.
Absolutely.
Cumbria had a few showers today, but otherwise we had a good deal of dry and bright weather. We can see the sun in the sky, blue skies here at Crosby, and the sun setting this afternoon. A lovely picture there of the clouds with the sun setting in Lancashire this afternoon as well. You can keep your pictures coming into the Weather Watchers page, or you can send them on social media as well. Now, if you've watched the national forecast, you will have heard we have got a very unsettled day to come tomorrow. Hopefully the wet and windy weather will move away to the east and allow something a little drier and brighter for some of us later in the day. But it's this weather system that's going to spread eastwards. It'll take a while to clear out of the way. It'll be followed hot on the heels by another area of low pressure for Friday night. Very strong winds, the risk of severe gales for the Isle of Man, and also gales for the coast as well. Out there at the moment then, a few showers in the west. The cloud will increase overnight. The winds will strengthen and outbreaks of rain will begin to spread in from the west later on in the night as temperatures fall back to around 5 or 6 degrees. So this band of rain will spread eastwards through tomorrow. We could even get a little bit of snow over the very tops of the Cumbrian Fells. It'll take a while to clear. There'll be a hangback of cloud. There'll be some showers moving through. But eventually, I'm hopeful that across Merseyside, Cheshire, Greater Manchester area, we should start to see some cloud breaks and an improvement here. But showers continuing elsewhere, particularly across parts of Cumbria. Temperatures tomorrow around 8 or 9 degrees. And that breeze, after quite a blustery start, particularly for the coast, it will ease down through the course of the afternoon. Looking further ahead, to start the day on Friday, some mist and fog, perhaps some early sunshine, clouding over through the day. The winds strengthening, a very windy spell of weather later in the day, with rain later as well. Roger.
Keely, thank you very much. You've got the right idea, I think. Leave it till late and then you can eat all the chocolates in one go. Thank you very much, as always, for watching. Whatever you're doing, have a great evening. Good night.